Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I can see some bleary-eyed people there. I saw many of you late last night as well. But I'm delighted to be moderating the first session for today. And we're speaking to some leaders and new leaders, actually. So before I get started, I'm going to ask each of you to do a very quick self-introduction of yourselves. And let me start right there with Alan.
Sure. So good morning. I'm Alan Watts. I'm the president of Asia Pacific for Hilton.
For?
Hilton.
Tell us a little more.
Hilton is a very large hotel company, second largest hotel company in the world. We're growing. When would you like me to stop? 1 in every 4 hotels in Asia Pacific today is a Hilton hotel. I could wax lyrically and take up the time on who Hilton is.
We'll ask you some pointed questions.
I'm sure you will.
Katerina.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katerina Giannouka, and I'm the president of Radisson Hotel Group. I'd like to just re-quote Manav. I think we're an international operator with an Indian touch. We've been operating in India for more than 15 years, and I'm recently joined the company. I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to get to know everyone.
Great. Pascal.
So I'm Pascal Gauvin. I'm the managing director for AG, covering India, Middle East, and Africa. We have 135 hotels in the region, 32 in India, and a pipeline of 48 hotels, so really enjoying being in India on a regular basis.
Great. Gerald, I think most people know you, but yes.
Well, I've had 45 years working, so I'll take about 15 minutes to tell you all about myself. Not. But I worked for 23 years with Trust House Forte at the beginning of my career, a lot of it in the Middle East, mainly in Dubai. I then went on to start up the Jumeirah Hotel Group in Dubai in 1997. I have now retired. And just coming to the end of my 2-year term as chairman of the World Travel and Tourism Council, where I will be handing over the chairmanship to Chris Nassetta. I'm sure you know very well as the president and CEO of Hilton Hotels, when we meet for our WTTC summit in Buenos Aires in 2 weeks' time.
Great. So all of you are fairly familiar with India in your current roles and earlier roles. So Alan, I'm again going to start with you. So tell us what your sense of the market is. How did India perform for Hilton last year, this year? What are you looking at in terms of growth, in terms of opportunities?
Sure. Look, I think it's an interesting time for the India market. We had double-digit RevPAR growth last year. We're expecting the same this year. And I like to think there's lots of reasons to believe in India currently. I think the post-2008 slump appears to be over. Demand and supply has started to regulate. We're starting to see year-on-year demand. I think from a macro perspective, we're seeing infrastructure spending, and that has in China and the USA been, the real bellwether of hotel explosion has been the ease of travel between cities. So between new airports, highways, and roads, there's lots of reasons to believe. GST, from an external perspective, and let's not get into the quantum of actually what GST is, but the fact that the business has been simplified and is easier to understand from both an internal and an overseas perspective, I think is positive. Last year we had 10 million inbound arrivals into the market, which means our brands are having strong performance. There's also 30 million outbound arrivals. So, as always, the Indian traveller is crucially important to the global scene, and from a regional India perspective, it feels like we're settling in for what I hope to be a longish upcycle, but I really feel that the cycle has turned.
Katerina, Radisson is probably amongst the best-known brands in India. You've probably had remarkable success in this market compared to the rest of Asia. I think a lot of credit goes to, where's Mr. Kachru? He's somewhere here, who really built up the legacy. So with this whole rebranding, acquisition, what's going to change for Radisson? I mean, are you going to do things the same way? Is there something different planned? Take us through the future plans of Radisson.
Sure. So I think, first of all, in case anyone's not aware, we renamed the name of our company to Radisson Hotel Group on March 5th. And it's really not just a corporate rebrand. It really signals the alignment of two companies. Before, we'd been operating as two distinct companies, Residor and Carlson Hospitality. And also, it it's just the tip of the iceberg. So a lot of work has gone underneath that. You know, the last year we've been working on a massive internal restructuring, if you will, pulling the company apart and then reassembling it as one global company. So does that have an impact on India? Of course. I mean, first of all, I think just the name, it was a bit like, why didn't you do this before? It builds on our most powerful brand, Radisson, and it's easier to explain what company I work for. But I really think it's just, as I said, the tip of the iceberg, strengthening our company, and ultimately what's going to change, and is already happening as of January 1 this year, is that we have a very robust strategic plan, and that touches every part of the business. So we've looked at how can we strengthen our brand architecture, so we'll be sharpening our brands. We will be coming up with evolved brand standards, India-specific brand standards, and making sure that we really drive value to our owners so that each brand has its own distinct swim lane, there's no overlap. And I think we can actually do a better job of that here in India. And then the other main thing, I mean, there's 7 main components under our strategic plan, but also what's good for owners is that we're building an entirely new IT platform and technology platform that will be cutting edge. So it will ultimately drive costs down for owners in terms of booking and reservation and capture that more direct bookings. And I think India is a prime opportunity. I mean, we heard yesterday that every second there are 3 new internet users in India. I mean, if that's not just, you know, blue ocean opportunity to go and acquire new users and introduce them directly to our company, I think that's a huge opportunity we'll be focusing on as well.
Wow, fantastic. Pascal, you've been familiar with India for a long time, 25 years with IG, a bit of a start-stop strategy in India over the years, but seems like you're getting it right. You have an Indian leader now finally in the market. Tell us about IG's vision for the future for India.
Yeah, for the last 7 years, we really have a very clear strategy of driving the mid-scale brand like Holiday Inn and Holiday Inn Express, and that's what we are doing really well for the last few years. We are growing at the right pace. We have already 32 hotels. 80% of the pipeline is in the mid-scale market. Doesn't mean that we are not growing with our other brand, the Crown Plaza, the InterContinental, and even others with the acquisition of new brand, the Hilton, for example, that could come at some point, and of course the Regent hotels definitely will come at some point to India. But really, I think what we are doing well is the focusing really on the mid-scale, working with owners, very close to owners, having an Indian team that is working very consistently for the last few years, deploying our sales team, so national sales organization through the system. So really learning, growing, and becoming better and better at what we're doing. Great.
So, Gerald, before I talk about WTTC, in your Jumeirah days, everybody thought that Jumeirah would put a flag in India, but you never managed to really. Why is that? I mean, you would expect that there would be a Jumeirah at least in Mumbai or Delhi. Was there a concerted effort to do that? Did you have any plans, and do you think that brand might still come into India?
I also thought Jumeirah would have more than a flag in India, that's for sure. We had actually, now I've been out of Jumeirah now for nearly 2 years because I went to the parent company, Dubai Holding. But no, certainly we had a property here near Bombay Dang that was supposed to be under construction, and also we signed another one in Goa. So definitely, I mean, you cannot be a Dubai-based company and not understand that India is one of your prime markets, not only for potential outbound travel to hotels that you might have in India, but also, of course, coming the other way. I mean, there's almost 2 million Indian visitors into the United Arab Emirates every year at the moment. So you better watch out for your domestic travelers. They're all going to the UAE. But it's something that certainly you cannot be, as I say, in the United Arab Emirates as a United Arab Emirates company and not consider India as one of your prime potential markets. That, as well as areas like the Maldives, which the Jumeirah Group, we did take them into it, and indeed had lots of discussions in places like Sri Lanka as well. So I would hope and very much look forward to seeing a development of Jumeirah, hopefully, but it's not my call anymore, within this country.
So tell us about, now in your WTTC role, looking at India in the future as a market, tourism, economy, What are some of the things you would like to share with the audience about where India is going vis-a-vis tourism?
Well, I think if you look at the broader macro picture worldwide, I mean, the WTTC has been very effective and indeed has worked quite closely as well with the UN WTO in getting across the message to politicians, to governments, to the public about the value of travel and tourism to society generally. And mainly on the, well, not just mainly, but society from the point of view of people getting to know each other, interact with each other, move on to respect each other because you actually go to their country and find out about them. But more importantly, I would say, is from the economic impact point of view. And the World Travel and Tourism Council has really got the message across over the years that our industry has a value of 10% of global GDP, directly and indirectly as a contribution. And also that it now provides over 300 million jobs worldwide, which is 10% of the global labor force. And if you look at the kind of jobs that are available within our industry, the hotel industry, which I think is totally malaligned and misrepresented in terms of the opportunities that it actually gives to young people to come in, to have great training, to understand how to work, to understand the work ethic, and to look at the career opportunities that we offer in the hotel industry, the aviation industry, the total travel industry. So we've got this message across. This has been our mission for many years, and I think we've been very successful at that. I'm sorry, I could go on forever about it, but I think that India then is a microcosm of what we do within the World Travel and Tourism Council. I mean, travel and tourism accounts for at least 43 million jobs in this country. It's growing at a phenomenal rate. It's 9.75% of the GDP of the country. And, you know, governments do very often forget that an international visitor is a direct export. It's a cash injection into the economy, but it doesn't get the actual recognition very often as an industry. Well, I think that thanks to organizations like the WTTC, we have been working very hard to get this message across, to get people to understand that we are a force to be reckoned with. We are 4 times the size of the automotive industry, for God's sake. You know, so we really do need to be recognized. And I know that it was the topic that I'm sure will come up in a few minutes, is to talk about the levels of taxation and the impediments that are there. So I can stop if you want to, we can talk later, but I don't want to go on too much about it.
I think we all agree on the potential of tourism, the opportunities, the economic drivers, but you mentioned the fact that, you know, political will seems to be lacking in this country.
Well, I don't know if it is or not, but what I would say is that one of the obvious examples to encourage tourism is to look at visa regimes, for example. And yes, in the WTTC, we have been talking about this for so many years, and we've been quite articulate about it and quite vocal about it. I give the example, in the United Arab Emirates 15 years ago, in Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed listened to the industry. We told him, look, stop asking for reciprocity in terms of visas, so that if another country doesn't want to give you a visa, it doesn't mean we don't want to give visas to other countries. So he gave visas to 32 different countries, visa waiver. But a true visa waiver. You arrive at the airport, you show your passport, you get stamped for 90 days, you're in, because you came from one of those 32 countries. Now, the day before yesterday, to my horror, I realized that I'd forgotten, because I don't have a secretary anymore, I got to do it myself. I realized that I hadn't got my visa organized. But I had read anyway that India gives 164 countries visa waiver. So I thought, I'd be okay. But I went online and discovered, no, I'm not okay, and that I need to apply for a visa, and that it would take 2 days minimum to get that visa, and therefore I'm in trouble. So I called the embassy, or the consulate in Dubai, who were extremely helpful. They said, no, go to this agency, they will try to help you, and I'm sure we'll get something organized for you. But I did, and at the end of it all, I got my visa on time, but it cost me 800 dirhams. I went to Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago to talk at a tourism conference, and everybody was excited in Saudi Arabia about getting tourists in there. Until I told them it cost me 5,000 dirhams, you work that out in rupees, to actually visit them for a day. And these are the impediments that governments, I don't think deliberately, but actually put in place through misguided ideas that A, you want reciprocity, and B, that it's a money-making idea to charge for visas. Right. You know, a visa waiver should be visa waiver. And if you're going to do it for 160 countries, then do it. We have the technology nowadays, and I'll stop in a second because I know I'm talking too much. But you know, you have the situation, for example, with safety and security in travel, which is very important to make sure that we continue to facilitate travel, so we facilitate our industry. But you see the atrocities that occurred in Europe last year. every single one of those atrocities were perpetrated by citizens of the country in which the atrocity took place. Right. And so therefore, why does it matter where you come from? It's who you are as an individual. Indeed. And that kind of technology exists. So these are the impediments to growth within our industry of really governments thinking that you have to have reciprocal arrangements and that visa waiver isn't really visa waiver. You know, why get a bit of paper back in off lines which I can print out if I was on time and I had myself organized? Then I come to India and then I have to give the paper in at a visa desk and somebody stamps a visa in my passport. It needs to move on.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so this is for both Alan and Pascal specifically, and I'll come to you as well, Katerina. So you've had new leadership in India. You've got finally Indian leaders running the company in India, which was something which I think most of us believe should have happened a long time back. What prompted that to happen, and what do you see with making those moves in bringing strong, respected, reputed Indian leaders? So I'll start with you, Alan, and then I'll come to you.
Sure. Look, I think from a Hilton perspective, we've had, as I suppose it had in my time with IHG, we've had a number of different strategies, some successful, some unsuccessful in the past in India. But we're very focused on this market, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is A, the strength of talent in the India market, and B, the fact that our owners sign management agreements. We're not in a long-term environment, we're not in a short-circle environment where there's a lot of flipping going on in this market. We're in the relationship business in India. And putting expatriates into a position for 3 years and then there's for taxation reasons and others they cycle out again is just a flawed mentality. You ask somebody to enter into a relationship for a decade, if not longer, to trade a hotel. And they want to feel like they're doing business with a person, not doing business with a brand or not doing business with an entity. And that starts with having an India leader. So our strategy, and particularly my strategy for India, has been to attract both Navjit and Jatin. We've got some more hires to come in. We're expanding the office. We've just announced doubling the size of our national sales team. We're also going to fund that and take it off property. I mean, I think India is Gerald makes a lot of great points on inbound and the ease of travel, but the true opportunity in India moving forward is the domestic traveller. Urbanization, infrastructure, rising middle class means the India domestic traveller is already huge and already dwarfs the inbound-outbound society, inbound-outbound dynamic in the country. So it's great that inbound's going to improve, and I couldn't support what Gerald's saying stronger. But I want to make sure that we have best-in-class infrastructure in India, regardless of the size of hotels that we have today. So we're ready to both capitalize on the inbound influx as business travel and leisure travel continues, but also be well-positioned to take that domestic traveler. And I don't believe you can do that with systems and digital alone. I think the India market, as it relates today, is a on-the-ground, boots on the ground in the top 5 cities, sales business, and it's complemented by your inbound travel. It's not your inbound travel complemented by your domestic travel, and it's facilitated by technology, but you're not going to do it with technology alone. You know, we find ourselves as Hilton in a very rare challenger position, which is not something we're in other markets in the world. And it's a unique position for us. And so it is one that we are spending considerable investment in this market. And all of it is about localization. All of it is about localized talent. When I'm asked at a global level specifics about India, my standard comment is India is art, not science. And that the dynamics of this market move so quickly and they're so exciting. If you're not super connected into this market and relationships and contacts and legislation and hotel licenses, just look at how quickly the liquor ban came and went into this market. I don't think you can be successful. So very much I think it's a new day for Hilton, and I think from this point on you will always see us striving to attract and promote best-in-class talent and to grow them through the business to inspire other people to join the business and follow the same path.
So I heard that when you hired Navjit and Jatin, Marriott were obviously not very happy campers about that. So hiring between Marriott and Hilton, tell us something about that. We've been hearing a lot of rumors about Hilton can't hire Marriott folks in India and vice versa. Is that really a fact? I promised I would do some controversial questions.
You did promise you were going to do some controversial questions. I think the reality is, if best-in-class talent moves from your organization or to your organization, it hurts, and it creates noise, and it creates gossip. And when you take, and you're able to attract talent like Navjeet and like Jatin, there's going to be a reaction and market rumors. And I think that companies try very hard to protect and control talent. And I think sometimes you see that in contracts that we've all signed in the past that try to protect for a period of time. The reality is people work for opportunity and people work for people. So yes, there are some contractual restrictions that fade away in a very short period of time, but I think the larger noise that you hear is validation. And one of the things that I think we're good at in India as an industry is trying to build the industry. So I take it as validation. I've heard the same thing. There is some truth into it for a fading period of time, but none of the people on stage are trying to make their careers off the back of the other person's company. We're in one of the fastest growing markets in the world with the biggest upside. So I'd like to think that as an industry, we are working for the industry first and foremost, and we're happy for each other in the industry.
Pascal, so similarly with IHG, I think this is the first time you have an Indian leader for the country. For years, you had a lot of expats coming in and out. What prompted this strategy, and what's going to change as a result of building up the India team now? I know IHG's gone up and down in India over the years. So what's new and what's going to be different for IHG?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we always want to have the best leader in the position, and especially in India. And for us, it was always very aspirational to have an Indian leader. And we invested in people, and we found our leader much earlier than when we just started a month ago. So we brought this leader already in the company in IHG 2 years ago to familiarize himself with the IHG tools, and really that he can understand our group really well, our company well. And then we brought him to India fully fledged for this new challenge. And I think that was absolutely essential. And 100% of our team leaders at the office in India, in Delhi, are all Indian, but we are just missing the leader. So now it's done, and we really want to have great succession plan to ensure we have continuity with our Indian talent. It's not only because they understand the market, understand the language, they get the culture aspect. It's also our duty to grow Indian talent. We as Hotelier, we know we are a provider of a lot of jobs and great careers, and this is part of our localization, it's part of our duty to educate and offer great careers to people, and of course, Indian people in India. So leadership is important. Group company is important. We also change quite a lot in IHG, and we have a new transformation coming in with a new global CEO, Kisbar, that took the leadership of IHG. And it plays in our favor because they've decided, and I think this is really a great thing to do, to give the power to the region. And of course, India will and is already benefiting from that. So we have more resources at ground level. We can be closer to our owners and making sure we drive the performance. We have more autonomy in our decision. We have more resources, especially in marketing, in brand marketing, in global technology. We merge commercial and technology at the higher level of the organization. It's one person that not only think about commercial and what tool he should need to drive this commercial strategy, it's one person that thinks both sides. And I think that's going to transform deeply our group and will have resonance into the market like India. So really a lot of exciting things coming in. We are just at the beginning of the journey, but we see already a change in behavior of our people. And when you feel empowered, accountable, responsible, you take initiative, you really start being much more connected to the business. And that's our ambition for the next few years, to really be very, very connected to India, like our other market, but specifically to India.
Great. So, Katerina, with the acquisition, Chinese owners, brand changes, lots of things have kind of changed, yet a lot of things remain the same. Radisson's had a pretty predominant position in India, a very recognizable brand, but I know you've just been through a fairly big restructuring. So what's the outcome of that, and what can we expect in India to see different from the Radisson Group now?
Yeah. So really, I mentioned before that we've developed a 5-year operating and strategy plan. So this really looked at what do we do well, what do we need to do better, what do we need to start doing, and what should we stop doing. So that plan is very robust, it's extremely detailed, and that's really going to take us to the next level. I'd say it's a 5-year plan, but it's really setting the groundwork so that we continue to have a dominant position in the Indian market. So it's heavily based on growth as well. So today we're about 90 hotels in India. By the end of the 5-year plan, we're going to have about 200 hotels open in development. So continued growth. In addition to that, I mentioned before, brand architecture. So really, we have, currently we have 7 brands. We just launched a new brand, which I think will be relevant for India. It's called the Radisson Collection, and that will allow us to play in the affordable luxury space. So as we see in India, predominantly, currently today, most of our hotels are in the mid-scale and upscale segment, 60%. But going forwards, as we have increased spending power in India and our guests want to experience more of the luxury, we think that affordable luxury is the next space we can channel our guests to. So that's a brand we'll be looking to grow in India, and we'll be launching our first hotel in Agra under that brand. So, I think for India, we're focusing on doing what we continue doing, which I think we got the nod yesterday we should do, but that's not going to be enough to take us to the next 10, 15 years of growth. We need to, we mentioned it's a sophisticated market. It's predominantly a domestic market. We'll talk about the 9 million inbound, but the 300 million domestic market is where we're focused, and we have managed to hold a dominant position in those second-tier cities in India, and that's where the growth's going to be continuing to come from. So we're going to just continue our strategy of being present in those second-tier cities and filling in the white space around where we already are. So those smart cities, cities are within 2 or 3 hours drive within other regional cities as well.
Right. So let's then move to the segmentation. I know that IAG has recently done a deal for 14 or 15 new Holiday Inn Express hotels, which are conversions with SAMI. Yet there's a much larger scale required to make that mid-scale segment profitable. I mean, 10, 15 hotels really wouldn't help you very much. In the US, I remember I worked for IAG when Holiday Inn Express was launched in the mid-90s, and within a couple of years, there were 500 hotels and then 1,000 hotels. Now, that's not going to happen in India. Yet, your strategy is to manage these mid-scale hotels, not franchise them. My sense is that. So how do you really expect a portfolio like Express or Hilton Garden Inn or Country Inns, in your case, to really deliver to your bottom lines when you're managing P&Ls which are earning you maybe $100,000 in fees? I mean, how does that work?
No, but bringing a brand to a country takes time, and this is fine. We started, like you say, we are very successful in the States, and scales makes a massive difference. We did exactly the same with China. And in China, we have today more than 300 hotels and as much in the pipeline. And many of them are Holiday Inn Express now, and many of them goes to franchise as the market is maturing.
So you are franchising in China?
We're franchising Holiday Inn Express in China.
Okay.
As the market maturing with the right partner, and there is no we don't ban anything. If in India at some point we can franchise and there is a space for franchising Holiday Inn Express with a partner, absolutely open to all of that. We will add 14 new Holiday Inn Express in the coming 12 months, most probably 8 to 10 already this year, plus the 6 that we have already, so we'll move already to 16 hotels. Then 50% of our portfolio will be Holiday Inn and Holiday Inn Express brand. 80% of the pipeline is already there. So growth is there, even if the numbers are not yet where we want to be. We have time. We are here for the long term. We are very, very clear about the success of that brand. We are very, very clear about how to operate it, how to make it successful for the investors and for the owners, and how to make it a great guest experience when people will checking into this hotel. It has always been our focus and strategy. This is what we believe, and we are really on the right way to get to scale with these two brands.
So would it be fair to say that the strategy is more towards distribution than necessarily fees at this stage?
Of course, you have to take things step by step. You have to invest in market. Why coming to a market and say, I'm here to make money? Of course, we all have the same goal. But let's take the time. We have enough places, and we are operating in more than 100 countries. We are a global company. It's not one market that will make the massive difference, but we know that investing in India today is investing for the future. It's being here for the next 50 to 100 years. You say we came in India 50 years ago, and we were in and out. We had different strategy. We were with Mr. Oberoi at the beginning, with InterContinental, and then we went with Taj, and then we went on franchise only, and then we came back. That's the history. This is the way you learn. This is the way you grow. This is the way you progress. Today, we've been very steady, very focused. We have a clear strategy. We didn't change any of that for the last 7 years. I think this is where our strength is. We know where we're going. We are very clear. We are bringing technology. We have a new reservation system coming in June, deploying in June for India, which is going to be the first in the industry. So all of that are great news, Indian leadership. So we feel that we are progressing well. Our RevPAR year on year, our comparability, has progressed by 11.2%, 16 to 17. And we see in the first quarter double-digit growth as well. It shows us we are in the right direction, and it shows us we want to continue and accelerate with this mid-scale.
So, Alan, would you agree with that? I mean, Hilton hasn't done very much with Hilton Garden Inn, for example, which is, the mid-scale brand. Everybody thought that that's going to be your vehicle for growth, but somehow there hasn't been enough traction. Is there a strategy in place now to tap that market, or are you still going to remain focused on your bigger brands?
I think from our perspective, it's a dual track strategy. We want to make sure that we continue to grow our full service, our focus, and our focus service brands. There will be a time that we'll introduce luxury and Waldorf Astoria to this market. We think there's opportunities, particularly in Mumbai, that could be suitable for that brand. As far as the focus service brands go, our largest focus service brand is Hampton, and we only launched that brand in 2016 in China. We've just signed our 200th Hampton, and we'll open 45 Hamptons alone this year. As it relates to India and why our growth hasn't been what it should be, I think I'd refer to my previous comment. You have to invest ahead of the curve. And I'm not sure that we had the sales or distribution platform to be able to fill those hotels. Now, our industry only works if owners are getting best-in-class yields. Everybody invests for yields. And I don't want to be associated with hotels that are not yielding a good result. And for us to be aggressive with Hampton or with Hilton Garden Inn, we need to make sure that we can take it to markets where we can perform. There is no point putting flags in cities that you can't fill. And for an international hotel company, if you don't have domestic infrastructure, you're not going to work outside of the major centers. So I don't think it's a limited opportunity in market. In fact, it's probably fair to say for both Pascal and I speak for my old company and my new one, Katerina has proven there is a vast opportunity in second and third tier cities, and she's had no competition for a large period of time. So there is an opportunity there. You can get to scale in this market. Rising urbanization, rising middle class, infrastructure spending, highways, freeways, it is coming. I think to some extent, IHG and Hilton are just late to the party.
So in the case of Radisson, you just took back country inns. I think you had a master franchise earlier, and now the brand's back with you. Radisson Red we hear about. So again, in your case, is there a focus on those brands, or are you still looking to kind of grow in the upscale, upper upscale segments?
Today, our single largest brand is still Radisson Blu, but we see going forwards, our fastest growing brand is Radisson, so more in the upper mid-scale or upscale segment in that case. But we really see an opportunity with, again, the government is investing in highways infrastructure, so our brand Country Inns and Suites, which in the US is a very, very large brand, focusing on highways. I think every 50 miles or so, there's planning in India, there'll be a service station that will include a hotel. So that's an opportunity we're certainly tracking. And also we're also playing in the lifestyle segment now with our Radisson Red brand. That's not going to be for every city in India, but certainly for the energetic hubs. So Mumbai, Delhi, some of the more energetic places. We have one coming up in Mohali, so that will be a brand that we'll watch. And again, with Park Inn by Radisson, it's a brand that will be very suitable for second-tier cities where there's an urban population. So going forwards, I think there's going to be continued growth in the upper mid-scale segment. That's really the segment we're watching, and where we think there'll be immediate growth.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that for all of you, growth in the mid-scale is definitely something as a part of your strategy for India in the future. In that, do you see a lot of opportunities in conversions? So one is to build greenfield, which is a huge challenge here, and one is to grow through the conversion route. I think many of the successful companies in India risked conversion, sometimes compromising on certain brand standards, but then you got the distribution. So is conversion a big part of the strategy for all of you? So let me start again with you.
Yeah. I mean, of course, conversion is always important. If an owner has an asset and wants to be linked with a big ship and benefit from all our reservation system and know-hows to operate, definitely we want to be present there. And to this end, sometimes the barrier to that is the capex that needs to be made by the owner to become a Holiday Inn, a Crowne Plaza, or this type of brand. But we thought about it, and we are launching in June a conversion brand. So a brand that will help the owner to not have a massive, huge investment in an existing great hotel.
So is that a new brand?
It will be a new brand. We don't have a name yet, but it will be a new brand which is only for conversion.
In which segment?
Between Holiday Inn and Crowne Plaza. So it will be a brand. It's only for great hotel, existing hotel. It will be able to plug to all of our system, and there will be very little brand standards, only sense of arrival, food and beverage, quality of sleep, and we believe that with a limited amount of capex, it will give access to independent hotels.
Franchising or managing?
Mostly manage, but we can look at franchise as well. Again, depend on the partnership, depends on the owners, depends on the institution that has the hotel. We'll be open to this, but it's really something created to really address this issue of a conversion cost a lot of money. So we want to work on this, and the good news is that we are launching it into our region, in Europe, Middle East, Asia, and Africa. So we will be at the center of it. So no issue to bring it to India very quickly.
Wow, great. Conversion brands for you, Alan? I mean, how did that work?
Different strategy than the one Pascal's just outlined. I worry that the word conversion brand turns you into an OTA. And what you're doing is just approaching a hotel and say, you can have access to my distribution system by being compliant to fire, life safety. And I'm sure IHG's had some standards around it. We have collections brands, so we have Curio, which is a collections brand, but it is a collection of lifestyle hotels that don't fit into the, don't fit into the norms of our other brands. And the smaller you go in hotels, the more boutique they are in nature, the more lifestyle designed. So there's a number of hurdle points to get into it. So we will continue with collections brands, and we have Curio and Tapestry, which are two different collections brands. But we want to make sure that our customers know that our brands continue to stand for something. And a Curio collection brand is a neighborhood-inspired, design-led hotel with the power and infrastructure that Hilton brings to us, you won't see us do a broad brand conversion brand. It's not in line with our strategy. Hilton's been out of the acquisition space for some time. We choose to launch our own brands. You're more likely to see us launch new brands to market within a space and launch new collection vehicles within a space than you would be do conversions. That said, India is the poster child of defunct superstructures. Drive around Mumbai, it is full of half-built hotels. It is a warning sign to everybody on just how quickly this market can turn, and it's a warning sign to everybody on just how complex it is to build hotels. So anybody that understands this market is pro-conversion, likes brownfield, and worries about greenfield. So certainly open to conversions, but hard brand first, collection brand second, and not just a plug-and-play option.
Mm-hmm. So Radisson also has one of these collection brands, right?
We do, and just in terms of conversions, before I move to that, different strategy to Pascal and also different to Alan, we're actually really good at conversions, and I think that's partly why we've managed to get a very strong foothold in India. And I'm just going to tell you about a story. I was here in January, we visited a Park Inn by Radisson in Delhi, and it's less than 100 rooms. That's not an easy space to operate in, and we've managed to crack it. We took this hotel over, it was independently operated, it's unionized, so there's also a lot of staff there that have been working a lot of their career there, and we managed within 12 months to turn that property around from negative GOP to more than $1 million, and it just blew my mind, and the staff were energized. It was very clearly a Park Inn by Radisson. I could walk into the room, and if there was just a photograph, I would know it was a Park Inn by Radisson. So discreet branding, without collateral and things that we want to move away. So I really think there's a way to do it. I'm not sure I want everyone to know that that's the case, because a lot of the bigger brands think you have to have cookie cutter, hard brand standards, room sizes of this, ceiling heights of that. And I really think consumers don't care. As long as you have those touch points, we all want an excellent mattress, we want staff, the service. It's nice to have a look and feel so that they can identify they're staying in one of our branded hotels. But I really want to say that there is a way to do it, and we've managed to crack it.
Great. Gerald, you were talking to me earlier about a new role with the Expo in Dubai happening in 2020. Mm-hmm. So tell us a bit more, because I think more from the perspective that how do events like this, bring in more tourism into the economy? How do they benefit from an infrastructure perspective? I know it's a massive, massive event which is being planned, and you're a big part of it. So just share with us how that's working and what the real outcome is going to be.
Uh-huh. Well, I think first of all, it's very encouraging to hear about the expansion of the hotel and hospitality supply here within India. Not only, of course, with the international brands, you've got some very famous brands of your own, like your Taj and your Oberois and all of these here within India. But I think that really, for say a place like Dubai to have ended up getting the World Expo 2020 didn't happen by accident. It happened by a lot of design. It happened by a lot of the right things being done in earlier stages. One of the big issues that I always like to talk about is the whole aspect of open skies policies and facilitating travellers coming to one's country. And again, that's something that the UAE worked very hard on and ensured that, yes, they have their own airlines, and yes, the American airlines say they get special concessions in the UAE, but they're not subsidized. Well, certainly Emirates is not subsidized. And I do think that an open skies policy and lack of protection for the national airline is vital in order to continue to develop and expand
You are aware that
visitors.
many people think that Emirates is India's national airline as well.
Well, good. I mean, if that works for Emirates, that's fine. I don't think anybody would be too bothered. But I mean, the most important thing, though, is to look at this. I mean, how we run the international aviation business. And I know that very much our president and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, Gloria Guevara, who used to be the Minister of Tourism for Mexico at one stage in her career, is working very closely with ICAO on this particular issue of continuing to show the benefit of an enlightened approach to air travel and to facilitation of landing rights. And the national airlines should not be protected to the detriment of other businesses who want to come in, who apply all the safety standards, who are fully licensed, and actually I think should be allowed. Another area is taxation. And I give an example of my own home country, Ireland, where just after the major financial crisis of 2009, the tourism industry, including the hospitality, the hotel sector, managed to persuade the government to drop VAT on tourism products, particularly in hotels, from 23% to 9%. At that time, there was about 5 million visitors a year coming to Ireland. Today, there are over 10 million, and they're now targeting 12 million, and that's to a country of 4.5 million people. So it's not even the size of Mumbai in the total population that they can get almost 12 million foreign visitors into the country. So I do think an enlightened approach to taxation, to aviation, we know that the airline business is the main artery of international tourism into anybody's location. And of course, not to forget domestic tourism, which we know in this country is of huge significance and will continue to be so. So if you look at how the World Expo came to Dubai, I mean, really, Dubai government got the community behind the bidding process. The bidding process is quite convoluted. We all visited Shanghai in 2010, and just before Milan in 2015, the announcement was made that Dubai would do 2020. And it's a massive infrastructure development as well. They're actually extending the metro line to be able to go to the south side of Dubai to be able to feed into the Expo area. So it's not an easy thing to do, but the reputation of the country had developed as a country that was open to visitors, that was open to any airline who achieved the international safety standards, etc., that they were licensed to fly, could actually fly there. And this whole aspect of reciprocal rights has to go away. If you want business, you must make it easy for people to buy. You must get your tourists be able to come in to a location. And I think that, to talk to yourself about the evolution and development of educational facilities within the country to train your young people within travel and tourism, within the hotel business. And I'm very encouraged to hear Alan talk about how, the industry is here for the industry, and people have to be able to move within companies, and you cannot restrict them. Within Jumeirah, we used to get this at one stage in the UAE, you couldn't leave your employer without getting a no objection certificate. Now, that has been abolished years ago. And we talked within Jumeirah, people just say, oh, so-and-so is leaving, we will mark them, they couldn't come back here. I said, no, if somebody wants to leave your company, they're going to go to another company, probably for better conditions, probably for promotion. And you know what? If they leave as a good leaver, why wouldn't we welcome them back? They've learned how other companies run their businesses, they come back to our business, and we have this, what we called a boomerang program. So we had a man-sized boomerang in our corporate office reception. And on that, anybody who actually left Jumeirah, went out and came back, we would put a little photograph with a testimony from them. Oh, I left and I went to InterContinental, I went to Hilton, I went to Radisson, but I've come back to Jumeirah, the best company to work for. So we'd have these little testimonies. And, it does work, and you have to be broad-minded in terms of young people are coming into our industry. We say this is the industry of the future. We can't restrict them from who they're going to work for or what they're going to do.
That's wonderful to hear. So last question, we're running out of time, and it is about education and talent. As many of you know, that's my new business. I'm setting up a hospitality institution, and we talked a little bit about that. So just share your views about the talent crunch. What can education do to bridge that, and how relevant is it for our industry, particularly for India? So, Alan, let me start with you.
Look, I have a long-term belief that India will become the third largest lodging market in the world. I think we'll be North America, China, and India. And for that to happen, obviously, the hospitality needs to be a viable career choice, or more importantly, travel and tourism. And we have a branding issue today. People don't see us as a career choice. It's such a fantastic industry, and one you can start at the bottom, proceed to general manager or an executive position in a hotel company, and raise your family in any country in the world. And it's a bottom-up industry, but yet we're seen as an industry where people transition through and on their way to study, and we're not seen as an aspirational industry, despite the fact that, as Gerald said, we're a massive GDP contributor here in India and globally. Travel and tourism in India makes up 12 in every 100 jobs, and that's only set to increase. So we as an industry need to do a lot better job, and I think the work that you're doing, which I applaud, will help in doing that. We have to be a viable career opportunity in all governments all over the world, but particularly here in India. We look at the hotel estate today and we say, India's gone through a period of oversupply. There are less hotels, branded hotels in India than there are in Singapore, which is a tiny country by comparison. So India is not an if, it's when, and the explosion will come. But for us to be successful as an industry, we need to make sure that we can deliver customer service, and that means great talent progressing through. So it is one of those things that we need to join hands on, and it is one of those things where, as an industry, we all need to support attracting talent to the industry for long-term career opportunities, having great Indian stories of general managers and beyond that have grown up in this country and in this industry. So critically important and always will be.
Katerina, would you endorse that as well?
Yeah, it is one of the, if I look at the challenges that lie ahead, it's definitely one of my 3 challenges. Currently, across our hotels in India, there are about 8,000 people employed, and looking that we're going to be increasing our portfolio significantly in the next 5 years. It's something that we do talk about often. I really applaud the initiative to set up a new hotel school at academic level. We're even thinking of looking at ourselves, perhaps, or certainly partnering up with an institution, because we need general managers and we need executive staff as well, and we need them in locations that are not necessarily the most attractive. So we have to look at what are we offering as a career path, how can we maybe look for talent, high-rising stars, and give them an opportunity to reach GM levels sooner, because we need them also in second-tier cities. We can't have everyone in the main hub. So we're really looking at how can we improve the strategy that we have in place today, because we're going to need talented people. The good news is that I'm so inspired. I mean, when I look at our GMs and I tour some of our hotels, there's so much talent here. There's so much enthusiasm and raw talent. So I'm not worried at all about that. It's just about how can we convince people to come and choose us as an industry and choose to work for us.
Pascal?
Yeah, our great brand can only be delivered by enough people, and bringing our colleague to make a career with us. We have one rule which works really well. We grow our people into the Indian hotel in India, and as soon as we open in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in the Gulf, our first career fair is within our hotel in India. So we give them the opportunity to go abroad and groom them even better, enhance their experience, and bring them back to India with a promotion, with a better job, and so on. So honestly, at the center, at the heart of everything we do, it's critical. And thank you for your venture. Definitely we will need to work together. And like Alan says, it's the industry challenge. It's not a brand challenge.
Great.
If I could just say one plea on behalf of, I would say, the women of the industry. Yeah. We actually bring in more women into the industry educationally. We have the Emirates Academy of Hospitality Management in Dubai. Over 50% of the intake is female. And you will see this with your hotel school organization. You see it everywhere. We see all the ladies working in the business. But I think as employers within the business, we're not really enlightened enough in terms of facilitating women working at senior levels. And congratulations to Katerina, but I don't want to be patronizing on that, because of course, why shouldn't you be the boss of your company? But it is something that we need to look at, like having facilities like creche facilities, having a lot more flexibility in terms of working hours, working time, maternity leave, paternity leave. And this is not just outside India, it's in India as well. Indeed. And I would say for women, I think that they should be given a lot more opportunity to flourish within the hotel, tourism and hospitality industry.
Great. Well, our time's up, and thank you all so much. I think the clear message here is that all of them are very optimistic about India, about growing their brands, growing their talent, putting up more hotels here. So best wishes to all of you for this year, and for you in particular with your new role, Hilton, Radisson, lots of things, exciting things happening. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.